Oh, because it's not doing that part yet. Hello, everybody. My name is Daniel Ware, and I'm the genealogy librarian here at the Kentucky Historical Society. I do apologize if there's a little hiccup at the start of the stream. I was just trying to get some things fixed real quick. Um, Basically, today is going to be a stream where I'm going to try to answer genealogy questions that you all may have. So I really hope that, um, you know, if you do have a burning question for me, you can type it into the comments on this stream, and I'll try to answer to the best of my ability, or at least try to give you a suggestion or point you in the right direction. Um, Also, I thought about also during this stream just to provide a little more than just me sitting here answering some questions here and there. I would try to maybe either talk about some resources that may be beneficial in general as far as genealogy research goes, and also possibly I would like to also kind of show you what the Kentucky Historical Society website looks like, especially like for the genealogy related things that you may be coming to us for, where you may want to go and look if you are thinking about coming to visit us, or if you're wanting to request a research request or something like that. I kind of want to just give you a showing of what some of that may look like. That way you can, take a look for yourself, or, even if you, forget something after today, you can always contact us and, here at the Kentucky Historical Society, and we can, help to answer those questions as well. So let's see if we've got anything yet. Not seeing anything just yet. Okay, so I guess to go ahead and kind of talk a little bit about some things you may find useful in your genealogy research, something that may help you if you are stuck and you have questions, or what type of resources, could be beneficial to you. I know here at the Kentucky Historical Society and several other institutions, there are several, depending on what you're looking for exactly. You could be looking for an ancestor's birth record, or to find some kind of proof on your ancestor's parentage, or find a connection between a parent and a child, or you may just want to know more about where your ancestor lived, things like that. So depending on what you're looking for, you could always look for vital statistic records, which would include birth records, marriage records, and death records. I will forewarn you, and I have, if you've seen any other streams or talked to anybody as far as Kentucky genealogy goes, or you've listened to any of my other presentations, vital statistic records, I'll say officially, because sometimes you may find a certain record that outside of the normal scope, I guess you could say. So, but typically Kentucky between 1852 and 1910 is when they were officially recording vital statistic records. Now there are some marriage records, such as marriage bonds and things like that, that do exist before 1852. So that can be a little easier to look for if you are trying to find a marriage record of some sort. Also, sometimes, you could check Bible records or church records to see if there's a baptismal record, or some sort of burial record if you're looking for birth or death information. Also, you might want to check deeds and other land records to see if there are any kind of connections between individuals who are in a land deal together potentially. You could see a father selling his son land or something to that effect. So looking for a deed could help you pinpoint relations, I guess you could say. And also sometimes, looking at a deed or some sort of land record like that could also help you pinpoint where your ancestor or a relative were living at a certain time. You may see them in a Fayette County deed record, and so then for like 1855 they had land, at least if they weren't actually living in that particular place, and you can kind of pinpoint. Sometimes even out of county individuals would sell land in a certain county. I have seen like maybe Washington County, I think I remember seeing, or Woodford County, I think it was Woodford County, but the individual who was in that particular sale didn't live in Woodford County. He lived in Washington County or some other county, and so they made a note of that in the record. So even something like that could kind of help point you to a certain county you may want to look at. Also, when it comes to getting stuck looking at certain individuals, looking for records in certain counties, you may also want to check the surrounding counties, because you never know, they may have went over the county line to get married, or they may have been living in a certain county, and then after some time that county branched off to form part of another county. So there's always the parent county and then the counties that branched off from them. So your ancestor may have never actually ever moved, but that county line may have changed over time. So you always want to double check the different counties surrounding as well. Let's see if we've got any questions now. Okay. All right. Let's see, what else? Also, it's good to double check and compare what you find in certain records with other records. Just a more in general food for thought kind of thing. I actually had just recently talked to a person and was mentioning this exact point, that you may see in one record, you may see a name that's very close to the ancestor's name that you're researching, but there may be something slightly off with it. It may be a spelling difference. There may be like a middle name or middle initial difference, or it could even be with dates. If there's a different year as far as a birth or a death than what you have found in other records, I would still keep note of that, compare it with other records. I would, write it down, because it's always good to know where you've been and to kind of put a pin in that particular item or record that you found. That way you remember to double check it later once you found other materials. And sometimes, if you are getting stuck looking at individuals or names that may be slightly differently spelled, or dates may be a little bit different, but that may still be the exact same person you're looking for. It's just something got written down wrong or differently, or there may have been just something, just the way something got recorded. We're all human, so people will record things wrong occasionally, or if it's a phonetic thing where they're hearing a name a certain way and they spell it differently, they're just going based off of what they know potentially. So it doesn't hurt to follow up that particular person, even if some things don't match up to what you already have. You may still find other doorways because of that. Trying to think of some other just good sage advice, I guess you could say. Yeah, because I just kind of, this one, I'm just, if you're just joining, I'm just trying to answer genealogy questions that you may have. you can always comment in the comment section and ask a particular question. And I'll also provide my contact information towards the end of this stream, so you can always call me or email me if you have questions after this point. And right now I'm just kind of also trying to just provide general advice, I guess you could say, or suggestions or ideas that you may not have thought of. But yeah, those are kind of a lot of the at least the more straight, forward go-to suggestions I would have. Also, sometimes you can find things like surname files. I have talked about those previously. We do have them here at the Kentucky Historical Society, and I'm sure several other institutions have some kind of surname filing system as well. Those can also be useful as far as you may find a photocopy even of a document, or some kind of information that somebody has provided over the years. And while it may not be an original record, you may learn a name or a date or a location for a certain, like for a marriage or for a birth. And then you can also then write down that information, remember it, keep that information, and then, or make copies of that page, and then go look for the original record that this is being referenced from. That's always a great starting point. Or even if, in instances, where you're just getting stuck. You may have been researching for a long time and then you just hit that one block. So even something like a surname file can kind of maybe give you a new path to look. There was another note I was going to make, and it has slipped my mind. I do apologize. Well, there's also family histories as well. They're kind of in the similar vein to a surname file, because you can learn information or key notes from them. They're usually books or collections of like family history charts that have been collected or written by either a descendant of the family or somebody who has done the research on that family. And those can be good points because you can maybe see what their citations are and follow their citations to find records, or you can write down names and dates, kind of like the surname files, and then use it to search the records then. Let's see, we have any questions? I'll do a question break real quick. Okay, let's see. Okay, we do have somebody. Okay. I am researching the Howard family and trying to find information on Thomas Howard, 1788, and wife Melinda Bruce. What would be the best place to find accurate information? Well, I would say, depending on if you know what county they lived in at any point, even if it was just for a short period, you can always check with either a county historical society, if that county still has one, because unfortunately I have seen some local historical societies have had to close down over the years, unfortunately. I would check either places like that, because I know like my own personal local county historical society, they in the past, when I would work with them, a lot of the members are local individuals who have a lot of knowledge about the local community, and they know of a lot of the people that grew up and lived in a particular location, and a lot of them will have records or books or collected materials. I would also say, you could potentially even check like a public library, like that county's public library as well, because some public libraries will have, a lot of them, especially here in Kentucky. I don't want to say necessarily all of them. I don't know for a fact, but several Kentucky county public libraries have usually like a Kentucky room or a Kentucky section, genealogy section, and they'll have a lot of, they may have some microfilm, and they may have books and histories, and they may have at least copies of some certain records potentially. Another place, as far as county related specifically, I would also sometimes try to check like the county courthouse, because I know like my county courthouse, my local county courthouse, back when I would research there for individuals who were seeking information, I would go there, and they would still have like deed books and things like that. You can also check with institutions like us, the Kentucky Historical Society, or other historical institutions, because usually, we'll have like we have like different records. We have things that have been transcribed. We have we have like manuscripts and some different things like that in our archives, and we've got records on microfilm as well. Those would be probably the big places, like specifically, that I would check. Because as far as like specifically accurate information, I mean, most of like institutions that have records on microfilm or have the original in their archives, I mean, in theory, those should be fairly accurate. Unfortunately, even original records, if it's like a census record, the census taker may have misheard a name and wrote down the name wrong, or got some little bit of information wrong. Not to say that that's always going to happen, but I just want to make that point that even sometimes records like that, somebody may have just wrote something down wrong. When it comes to accurate information, I would go to these different institutions and places like I was describing, and find, research this information, find it, write names down, write things down, and then, search all these different types of records and compare them to each other, because usually the more consistent the information you find is, usually in theory the more accurate it should be, just because if more things are going to say the same thing, it would be kind of odd if it was all wrong, or off or incorrect. I don't want to say that couldn't happen, but I don't want to make any kind of false guarantees or anything. But usually if you look at like 50 different records for somebody, and if they all say the same thing, then you're probably in pretty good shape as far as accuracy goes. Let's see if I can check again before I move onward. Okay, so what I am going to do now, because what I said at the start of this stream, besides just trying to answer your genealogy questions, I was going to try to give some examples and suggestions, which I have been doing up to this point. But I also wanted to show what you might want to look for on our website at the Kentucky Historical Society, just to give you some ideas of resources you can see online, and if you were to come visit us, or if you wanted to seek our research services, this might help answer your questions. Okay, so I'm going to change the screen here a little bit. Okie dokie. Okay, so this is the main page as far as what most people, as far as if they're doing research or if they're going to visit our library, what they're going to want to go to first, more than likely, because this has got our different catalogs and research tools that can help you as far as figuring out, like, if you were going to make a trip to the Kentucky Historical Society, or you were just curious about what we do have and what we don't have. Sometimes if you look ahead here on our website, that might potentially save you a trip, or, you know, answer a question on whether or not we do have a certain record or item. So first off, I'm going to show you the digital collection. That is basically anything that has in our archives that has been digitized. So that could be anything from, you know, some manuscripts to, you know, maybe maps to pictures or images. And now I will say this is not everything that we do have in archives. This is a certain percent of that. But this can always be a great resource that you can search from you can search for this at home, is what I'm trying to say. Get a little tongue tied. So, you know, if you are curious about anything, especially on the archival side, you can always check this. And basically you can reach it by typing in kyhistory.com, and that'll actually take you directly to the digital collection itself. And this is kind of just like the index intro page, and there's different things you can look for, like resources and finding aids. Like the finding aids can be useful if you were looking at a certain box of collections that we might have, and they may potentially tell you, like, especially if there's several boxes, what each box contains, or give a little brief description anyways. Let's see. Trying to find something to just bring up. Yeah, a lot of PDFs. Okay, so let's see what this one. So if you do click on a finding aid or any kind of document that's in this digital collection, a lot of times you will get a page like this first that kind of gives an overview. A lot of times it does get a little confusing because you think that that's all that there is. But a lot of times there's this green arrow that's in the corner here that you can kind of see me hovering around. If you click on that, it basically opens up a little mini window, and then you'll basically get like a more fuller viewing of this documentation, because then you can go further. So then see, basically it'll tell you on the very far left hand side what the folder or the box number is, and you know, depending on what it is, like, you know, it may either tell you like who the grantee was and who a signer was and things like that, or it may tell you, you know, if it was a certain folder in a box, it may tell you it's a correspondence between, you know, John Smith and Mary Smith and things like that. So you can kind of get an idea of what you're getting into, or if it would be something that you would want us to pull for you to look at. Let's see. Let me go back a little bit. And then there's also like manuscripts, and it'll also include some of like older photographs. But then you'll get like just different pieces of paper, manuscripts, documents, letters, things like that. And then you can, you know, expand that as well and get a closer look. And then you're always more than welcome to, if you do find something like this and you see that and you still want to see it in person, you're always more than welcome to visit us and we can pull that for you. But yeah, so yeah, there's different things, different material types, and you know, depending on what you're looking for, you can click on one of these options. You can also, up here in this upper right corner, you can also check for things and type in like a certain term or a name, and then it'll bring up certain things. Sometimes it can be hit or miss depending on, just what we've got and the specificity of the search. You can also do some filtering on the very left-hand side. You can pick based on subject or based on the type of material or the date that it was, I believe that it was created, or who the creator was, and things like that. And also, in general, like if you just want to go to our main website, it is history.ky.gov, and so that'll take you to just our main website. And then if you want to go specifically to the catalogs and research tools page, you can. There's a couple of different ways that you can go to that. If you go and hover on this Explore tab that's right up here, and then it'll give you some drop-down boxes, and you could click on Catalog and Research Tools. And I believe either resources for researchers or resources for genealogists, one of the two will, I think, take you. Yeah, you can get to it. Yeah, also this way too. I'm going to go back to that real quick. And then there's also objects catalog right here. I'll tell you about that just real quick. That basically will let you look. It'll let you see if we've got a certain physical object, such as a dress or a quilt or, something to that effect. So you can, type in a certain term or name, and it'll bring up different things like portraits and other items. But I don't use that too often, and I'm sure there are people that may use it quite a bit, but I just thought I'd point that out just so you know that is an option. Now, the main thing I would say a lot of people, especially coming in to visit our library, and that I use and coworkers of mine use a lot is the library catalog. And that basically you can search for anything that we have, either potentially that we have in the library or even potentially in the archives. I would typically search by title, so you can type in a name or a county, and then it'll bring up our catalog and it'll show you different materials, items relating to that, different records, different books. And then this helps a lot because you can look at this from home, and that will allow you to see if we do have a certain book or a certain record, and you can save a trip potentially or whatnot. And you can always give us a call, and we can look up to see if something is in our catalog, and that as well, that works too. But yeah, those are the main. Yeah, because then you can basically click on it, and it doesn't really give you a lot of super detail as far as besides just if we have it or not is the main thing, and potentially where it's at. Like over here, it'll show it's in our general stacks, and it'll give you the call number and all that kind of good stuff. And you might get some information about who wrote it or who put it together or the year it's from, the physical description of it, how many pages it is, that kind of thing. Let's see. Also, while I was on this page, I do want to really quickly point out that we do have different resources and other catalogs and publications and databases. If you scroll down on this catalogs and research tools page, there's these different types of resources. And also we do have Ancestry Library Edition, So if you did visit us, you could get on one of our computers, or I believe connect to our guest internet with your laptop, and then you should be able to access Ancestry, the library edition, for free. There's also Fold 3, which I believe is a part of Ancestry, and that would be useful if you were researching an ancestor who was in the military. And it's the same as Ancestry. You can come here and basically look at it for free through us. And then there's also the Anywhere, Anytime section where it's, family search, find a grave, those types of resources that you can access anywhere. But, we like to point that out too because it's free and they can be useful as well. I also wanted to show, under this Explore tab, there are the library research services. I do want to point that out because, we do get a lot of people that do require help and assistance in researching their ancestors, and we usually have to, we either point them out to our research services that we do have, and, I want to just point that out here so that way you all can know where to find these forms and all that. So it's under the Library Research Services page, and there are some different options depending on the level of research you're needing. There are single record requests, which that's just basically like a one person, one record. You're looking for your great grandfather's birth record. That would be a single record request. And that would be $21.20. That would be the research fee for that particular level. And we would research and try to find that birth record and then send it to you. There's also a research request, and that's the bigger level. That would be, it would be for members of KHS, it would be $47.70 for an hourly basis, and then $53 for if you're a non-member. And basically, up to an hour at a time, we would research different types of records. If you're looking for more than one record, you're looking for, really kind of restructuring your ancestor's life, and you're trying to find who their parents were and who they married and a bunch of, a deep dive of information, that would be that level of request. And you can basically, there's a download form here, button below each section, so you would basically just click on that and it'll bring up the form, which you can then fill out. You can basically fill out either on your computer, or you can print it out and fill it out, and then you would just mail it in with the research fee. We also do have photocopy requests. That would be more for cited sources, such as like a book or something very specific, and you know exactly where it's at, and we can find it on page like 53 in this certain particular document. I know sometimes that can be a little bit tricky, the photocopy request, because the form does want to know how many pages you're requesting and some of those kind of details. So you can call or contact us ahead of time, and then we can do a page count for you and then let you know, and then you can finish filling out that form. Now, the way it's broken down, it is 50 cents per page, and then it is for every 25 pages there is a $5 processing fee for just the time and effort and finding the item and making the copies and things like that. So I just want to lay that out there and let you know ahead of time, straightforward, that it's how some of the pricing works. So don't like to don't like to surprise anybody. Let's see, I'm trying to think. Yeah, and you can always call you can always give us a call if you have further questions about any of these particular services. Let's see. Those are the main sections, I would say, as far as anybody that's doing genealogy research or is seeking help from us as far as research and genealogy goes. Those would be the main places I would suggest probably people would check. And let's see if we got any other questions. Okay. Not seeing anything else. Excuse me. Let's see. Trying to think of anything else I can tell you all or let you all know about. Let me bring up my contact information just so that it's up here on the screen. Okay. So that is my contact information. Like I mentioned earlier at the start of this, my name is Daniel Ware, and I'm the genealogy librarian here at the Kentucky Historical Society. This is my email and my office phone number. I'm more than happy to try to answer any of your questions anytime past today. If you want to just randomly contact me, a week, 2 weeks, a month from now with some kind of question, I'm more than happy to try to answer it to the best of my ability. Just still trying to make sure we don't have any other questions. I don't want to leave anybody hanging by accident. Don't think so. So I think that will probably be about it. If you still do have questions after the stream ends, like I previously said, here's my contact information, and you're more than welcome to still comment on this once this stream's over. This stream will still stay on the Kentucky Ancestors page for a while as a video until it, unfortunately, there's a policy, I think, a video policy where these videos will delete after like a month. So it will be on here at least for that long, and it will also, it should actually be on our Kentucky Historical Society YouTube page, so YouTube channel. So if you do somehow miss the window of seeing this completely on Facebook here, you can always go there and see that along with other videos. And I believe next month will be the final genealogy Facebook live stream program that I will be doing this year, just because after October we get into the holidays and it gets a little hectic. So but that one will be, I believe, October 11th. I believe that's the second Saturday. And that will be, I'm going to have a special guest speaker for that one. It's going to be, as of right now, fingers crossed that nothing, happens between now and then. It's going to be Walter Bowman, who does work a lot with military records, Kentucky military records. So I thought he would be a good guest speaker to have to talk about that, and I think he's got a idea of what he's going to talk about, and hopefully that'll be interesting to a lot of you all, and maybe kind of answer some questions you may have when it comes to your ancestors who may have been in the military. Let's see. Okay, well, not seeing any more comments or questions, so I think we're just going to leave it at that. So if you do have any questions, feel free to contact me after this. This should be here like this. And I will see you all next month. Thank you.